Talking this afternoon about my love of local food, but also touching on the idea of freedom, a bit of spirituality and a bit of gender politics as well all thrown in, so I'm not quite sure how this journey is going to go, but I haven't been able to separate it out. I love local food. I got involved in the whole local food thing about 15 years ago when I was living in Canada, and one of the things I love about it is it just is one of those few things in life that everything seems good about it. You know, it seems to be good health, good food, supporting the local economy, good for the environment. I've yet to find anything that's wrong with the whole local food movement. There's not a lot of things in life that you can say that about. Also, I never really was very fond of these places. I just didn't like them, you know, and I got a feeling quite a lot of other people don't like them as well, but they just feel rather constrained if there's not a choice. So it's about creating choice as much as anything. Interesting couple of things on the radio recently. A couple of days ago, there was an interview with a fruit producer in South Africa, and he was saying that each year, the supermarkets who buy most of what he produces are getting more and more fussy about the cosmetic appearance of his fruit. It's like now, everything has to be super perfect, otherwise they won't take it, and then he has to either throw it away and waste it, or sell it off cheaply. And he was saying, then it's a real pity that people seem to have lost the point of what food is, which is what it tastes like. And I think there's interesting parallels with the cosmetic surgery industry in this country, which is also really rapidly expanding at the moment. We seem to be getting into some weird mindset that the way things look is more important than what they actually are, as in, you know, taste or character, we might say, in people. But anyway, so there's my little drift into a little bit of philosophy there. Now, this is also kind of a strange story, isn't it? You know, Tim Lang, very memorably, I don't know if you're Professor Tim Lang, the food guru in the UK, I loved his sort of comment that, will this mean that we'll have the super fat watching the super fit? You know, it's a bit odd, it's a bit mad. It lets you know there's something weird in our food system. Now, a bit of good news though, because I promise you I'm going to start off, I am going to do a little bit of kind of things that aren't so good, but I promise you I'm going to end on an optimistic note. This story I think is fantastic. Detroit, which was kind of the heartland of the oil-driven economy, you know, right at the front of the American industrial model, is now becoming a sort of flagship for urban agriculture and people growing their own food and creating communities based around local food production. Because what's happening is the population is declining, it's tanking, everybody's leaving. There are huge patches of open land where factories are being knocked down, but I think more importantly there is some kind of cultural change going on. There's something in the air, there's some realization that I think we're getting as a species that we've got to move on. You know, that old model wasn't working anymore, and fantastic things are happening in Detroit. All kinds of food going on, lots of nurturing of the land, communities being created, excellent news. Of course, this is the model of the food system that more or less feeds most of us most of the time. This is still what's going on. And, you know, there are all kinds of reasons why, even though we carry on supporting it, because it's really hard not to a lot of the time, because, you know, supermarkets are where most of the food is. That's where 95% of us do our food shopping. Well, I wouldn't say us, because, of course, I buy my food at the farmers' markets, but, you know, of our population. But, you know, this model, don't want to go into too much detail, but responsible for the kind of food that comes out of this system: overweight, diabetes, global warming, lots of local shops closing. You know, why do we why do we import 90% of the apples that we eat when we used to be able to grow almost all of them? I mean, food being shipped around the world for no reason. More people eating ready meals. Meanwhile, the level of malnutrition in this country is increasing. I mean, it's bizarre, really, in one of the most developed countries. Here we have food poverty, malnutrition, lots of low-paid workers on farms, and crucially, food prices going up. I mean, this is something irrevocable at the moment, and I'll sort of touch on to why that is maybe in a couple of minutes. But, you know, I think it's fair to say it ain't working. And I'll try to understand why we have got, you know, why do we even have this kind of system? And to my mind, I'm trying to explain it. I think it's that we're still rooted in a relationship with the earth, if you like, which we adopted when we were at that stage. You know, when it was really a matter about swinging that big club and, you know, whacking things before they got us. It was really that attitude of, if you don't kill nature, it's going to kill you. And I think we're still basically waving that club around, but now it's in the form of industrial agriculture. It's behind the story of, you know, profit at any cost. It's about power. And I do think this is where the gender bit creeps into it. I think it's a very masculine model, to be honest. I still think we have this sort of very masculine relationship with the earth, which is let's beat as much out of it as we possibly can, get as much out of it as we can, make as much as we can. I'd like to suggest that, you know, that might have been appropriate back then, but we've really got to move on quickly before we get ourselves into even more serious trouble. You know the kind of thing, erosion and the fact that we're growing in oil, apart from anything else, whether or not, you know, you sort of have doubts about the sort of negative environmental impact, the fact that we grow our food in oil, basically, you know, fertilizer, transport, pesticides, we grow our food in oil, not soil, predominantly. Oil is something we don't have very much of, so it makes us incredibly vulnerable to the people who do have it. Politically, that's not a good place to be in any way. On top of that, you know, it is a finite resource, it's going to run out. You know, it's a no-brainer, really, to use that rather horrible American expression, but I think it's clear it's time to move on. And anyway, shopping with an oil-based food economy at an international, multinational-owned supermarket. I mean, does anybody really enjoy that? I don't know. I think we tend to endure it rather than enjoy it. That is the big club. This is almost like the way agriculture is approaching the earth at the moment. It's like let's just use sheer power, get the results we want, but not really pay attention to the costs. Now, this quote is always attributed to Einstein, but I googled a little bit, and of course Einstein never actually said this. A wonderful example of how a quote gets attributed to somebody at some point. In fact, it was written in a book. It's something to do with Einstein, but it's kind of a nice quote anyway. We've got to get back to what it is that nurtures us when it comes to food. Really, as simple as this. If we don't look after the soil, if we don't look after our seeds in the soil, we're stuffed. This is what nurtures us. This is Mother Earth. This is what we need to protect and take care of. Otherwise, you know, we're going to be in trouble. An interesting statistic which I came across the other day. In the strange food world, we've got 1 in 6 people in the world are stuffed, and 1 in 6 people in the world are starved. It's obviously not working. And we throw away up to half of what we produce. We've actually got more than enough. We could produce more than enough food in the world to feed everybody 3 times over. It's just that huge amounts of it are wasted. So in fact, I think we labour under the idea that we need this highly intensive, highly industrial, highly sort of polluting kind of agriculture to feed everybody. And in fact, it's not necessarily the case at all. And you know, the Green Revolution was famous for increasing yields by using highly intensive methods. I found out yesterday that one of the reasons that we got so used to using chemical fertilizers and pesticides in agriculture is that after the Second World War, there was a lot of nasty stuff left over, you know, defoliants and nerve gases and so on. And the farming companies found that they could actually use these stocks by converting them into products that could be used by agriculture. So I guess in one way it was a kind of recycling, so maybe it wasn't all bad. I love this slogan because, you know, PR is a wonderful thing, isn't it? Food, health and hope. You know, there's not a lot of activities in the world that I would refer to as evil, but Monsanto come pretty close. When you've got a company here that is producing seeds which they then own to the extent that if any of the GM corn that's grown with one of their seeds, for example, accidentally trips into another farmer's field, they can then sue that farmer and put him out of business. You know, they're selling seeds to the Indians, which then hook them completely into a cycle of needing to buy their pesticides and fertilizers. You've got Indian farmers committing suicide at a huge rate because they get themselves into complete hop to this company. They're patenting, they want to patent plants from other countries that actually belong to all of us, but Monsanto want to own them, so that the way it looks to me is you've got a company here that wants to control the entire food supply of the world. It's really, really scary, dangerous stuff, and it's going on right under our noses. Of course, there is a lot of resistance to Monsanto's lovely message of health and hope, and you know, there is luckily a growing awareness that no, this isn't really the way we want to go. And of course we have our own homegrown big clubs as well when it comes to the food system. You know, the thing about food is that when we come to look at how our food is produced and how we buy it and where it comes from, it really has an impact in all aspects of our lives. I mean, other than the obvious fact that, you know, it's probably the one thing we absolutely have to have. Well, I know we need shelter and clothing, but, you know, we could possibly last for a little while without that. But, you know, food for all sorts of reasons. But it's more than fuel. It actually, to me, it exemplifies one of the reasons I started getting into farmers markets, and I've always loved markets wherever I went in the world, is food is all about our relationship with the earth, you know, with our Mother Earth. Food is, it's more than just something we consume. It's about relationship. It's about life, really. And I'm optimistic. I mean, there are more and more people now who are not just willing to accept what they're being told, who don't just want to be slaves to the big multinationals. And there are fantastic books being written, brilliant thinking going on. There seems to be like a worldwide movement, a sense of awareness of the importance of changing our relationship with food, where it comes from, how it's produced. And more of a sense of recognizing, Vandana Shiva particularly talks about the need to change this sort of big club, you know, masculine attitude to the environment, of just beating whatever we need out of it, to one of relationship, one of collaboration, one of mutual nurturing, which I think, you know, well, this is the way it's got to go. You know, it's more than a change in agricultural techniques. It's a change in how we think about ourselves, our relationships with the earth, and in terms of relationships between men and women. You know, it's a real type of cultural change that's needed. Just reminded me about another interesting piece of information that came up on the news last week. More people buying more and more food books and looking at pictures of food more and more, but actually doing less cooking. And I thought, you know, that's kind of, maybe food porn isn't such a bad analogy when it comes to that. No, we need a different type of relationship, a different type of understanding of our relationship with food and with the earth. Nothing new. This is a picture of Roath Park. Those of you from Cardiff. We're probably all from Cardiff, actually, but anyway, this was during the Second World War. You know, this is a dig for victory. Roath Park was cultivated. You know, we have been in a situation where we needed to grow food, relocalize. This is a picture from Havana when I was there last summer. You know, they had their oil supply cut off when the Soviet Union collapsed 12 years ago. They had to very quickly devise a much more sustainable post-oil agricultural system, and they now grow massive amounts of food within Havana organically. So they're a brilliant example of what's possible. Of course, when you go to one-party state, things move forward quickly as well, but it's still a great kind of example. And there are so many projects going on, so much good news all over the country. Manchester, growing food in Manchester, transition towns, green mapping, slow food, food co-ops, the Federation of City Farms. I mean, honestly, if you Google local food, there are fabulous projects. There is this sort of something really deeply changing, I think, in terms of the culture and our attitude to food, which is really optimistic as far as I'm concerned. And of course, it's not all airy-fairy idealistic stuff too. It's about actually making money. I mean, for me, the idea of something being sustainable is always rooted to the idea that you can make money from doing it, because that is what, you know, basically, you know, money is what fuels our lives in all sorts of ways. And the new food culture is very much rooted into an economy. Tolworth, this fabulous little town in Yorkshire that plans to be entirely self-sufficient in food by 2018. They're growing food in the graveyard, you know, they're growing food in front of the police station. They're showing that it is possible to have an entirely different food economy. Lots of wonderful examples of small-scale food producers making a living, you know, growing food, supplying food locally, bypassing all that need for oil and shipping and flying and pesticides and herbicides. You know, sometimes I think it's good. Law and order, sorry for the bad pun. You know, people, why have these empty patches of land in front of our houses? Let's use it to grow food. All sorts of crazy ways of producing in the city. Of course, they have to go one step further in the States and be growing. Hey, we've got empty spaces on the buses on the roofs of the buses, guys. Let's grow food on there. But you know, why not? It's all good fun. But really practical examples too, like this wonderful supermarket in Manchester that buys all its food from its own food growing project in the vicinity. All kinds of ideas. This one in the top right-hand corner is a little shop in London where they grow fish to sell, and they have a vegetable-producing hydroponics plant in the background. So there are all sorts of possibilities. I'm hoping that People's Supermarket is coming to Cardiff soon. We're going to have a community-owned supermarket where, you know, we're recognising the practicalities of people liking to be able to shop and get what they need in one place. But let's have it being community owned rather than owned by a big multinational. New Economics Foundation showed quite conclusively that a pound that's spent with a local company circulates in the economy and generates a sort of another £7 worth of activity in the local community. A pound spent with a big multinational basically just evaporates. So it's a different way of thinking about money. This chart I put up just to sort of say, watch out for those lovely products like innocent smoothies, which are now largely owned by Coca-Cola, and a whole variety of other quite groovy sounding products. Of course, the big guys don't want to miss out on a trick, and they're moving in that area. So I'm just saying, you know, the Cadbury selling out to Kraft to me was really kind of a sad one. But you know, just check the label. So now we're coming into the finish line, onto the actual topic of my talk, which was about food charters. There is a movement for cities across the UK to become sustainable food charters, sustainable food cities rather, and I'm happy to say that Cardiff is one of them. I've been working on developing a food charter with a group of food activists in the city. We're about to launch it at a conference on the 3rd of April. And I love this. I think it's a little bit like the Magna Carta. You know, we want to get our liberty and political rights back from. We want to be the rebellious barons. Let's get our rights back from the big multinationals. And a food charter is basically about basic principles of what we want our food to be in our city. Health and well-being for all, a thriving local economy, environmental sustainability, resilient communities, fairness in the food chain, all really good stuff, and all stuff that food can really help to deliver on. Like I say, it's a lot more than just something we eat. Of course, the beauty of it is that the local, sustainably produced food actually tastes fantastic as well. So, I mean, when people come to our farmers markets, they're not trying to buy into an ideology. They're just basically buying the best possible food they can get. Green mapping is going on all over Cardiff to identify empty land where we can produce food. And the social enterprise that runs the Riverside Market, we're doing a food growing project on 5 acres close to town, and it's going really well. You can actually, it's being run as a co-op, and you can buy shares in it if you like. It's a community support in agriculture, so come and see me at the end if you want to buy a share. And my final slide is, I love this diagram because what it shows is, you know, I talked at the beginning about win-win situations. What's good for us in terms of our health is also good for the planet. It's a real win-win. This shows that, you know, the more environmentally friendly the food is, the better for us it is as well. And I kind of like this this definition of sanity, which is what we want. I remember Greenspan admitting that his model of the economy, you know, to me, he's a little guy, but I see him there with that big club, you know. This is the kind of change of culture we're interested in. Let's move towards an economy where currency isn't money, it's life. Thanks very much for your attention and time. I hope I fit in the